Hi everyone, and welcome back to Talking Cardboard. My name is Cory, and this is part number 2 in my top 50 favorite board games of all time. On today's list, I go through numbers 45 down to 41. Hope you enjoy. Let's get right into it.
Number 45.
All right, and my number 45 on the list is the first game to show up by one of my favorite board game designers ever, and that is Stefan Feld. Like I said, the first game to show up on the list by him, and that game is Forum Trajanum. This is actually one of the newest Stefan Feld games to be released. In Forum Trajanum, it's got some really cool things going on. It's just very simple at its core to play, but very complex and heavier strategy-wise. So really like this one. Basically, every player has their own player board. It's almost laid out like this grid system where you've got columns and rows. Each different column and each different row is depicted by a different symbol or a different icon. At the beginning of every round, you flip over 2 cards, and those will tell you what 2 icons you can take tiles from. So if you have an icon that's one of your columns and another icon that's one of your rows, you can take any tile off your board from that column and that row that is depicted by those cards. Sometimes it's both cards are 2 different columns, sometimes they're 2 different rows, but whatever the cards turn out to be are what columns and rows you can take tiles from. You lift up one tile of your choice off the board, and you look at them in secret, and you decide which one you're going to keep and which one you're going to give to your opponent. So that's a really cool aspect of this game as well, because you're actually deciding very heavily on what bonus and benefits your opponent gets and what bonuses and benefits you get, and they're all really good options. And it makes for very complex decision making. So after that is done in secret, you'll actually get 1 tile from your opponent as well, and out of those 2 tiles, you then decide which one you're going to use. The tiles have various things on them, from different colored workers to build buildings and these different bonuses, and you're trying to build out these different buildings on your board, but you can only build the buildings in the spots that you've taken the tiles off of, the worker tiles that you've taken off of your board. So that's kind of another layer to the game as well. You are taking the tiles off to then give 1 to your opponent, and then you're using those tiles for these different benefits, and then based on the different benefits you got from those tiles, some of them may be different colored workers, you use those colors to build that same color building, and if there's just so many things going on, but depending on where you've taken workers off of your board is where you can then place those buildings. Depending on where you place the buildings on your board, you get different bonuses and different endgame scoring. Each round has different bonuses that come out as well. So a lot of decision making, and like I said, very simple gameplay at its core, but very complex decision making. That is why I love this game. And yeah, definitely one to check out if you are a Stefan Feld fan. I would say maybe if you're not as much of a fan of those dry Euro styles or haven't played very many Stefan Feld games in the past, I don't think this is one I'd really particularly start with. Maybe try out some of his other games first and see if you enjoy more of that dryness and more of the really crunchy decision making. But I mean, having said that, I do love this game a lot. Obviously, I love a lot of Stefan Feld games, but this one is easily staying in my collection, and another great one from him. Not all Stefan Feld games are hits. This one in particular is a hit for me, though, and that is Forum Trajanum.
Number 44.
All right, and number 44 on my list is one of the simplest area control games I think ever created, and that's saying a lot. Spoiler alert, Small World is not on my top 50 list. Is still a great game. Small World definitely makes my top 100 of all time, but not the top 50. That would be kind of in the same echelon as this game in complexity, as it were, to area control. And this game is Ethnos. So in this game, extremely simple. You have this central board with these different regions. There's 3 rounds played out in this game, and each round, the different regions are worth different amounts of victory points depending on what round it is. Extremely simple game. You have a deck of cards full of these different kind of monster creatures. Each creature gives you different abilities depending on what you draft, but on your turn it's very simple. You have a bunch of face-up monster cards that are, like I said, face-up, that you can either take one to your hand, or the other action you can do is play all of one color or all of one monster type down to control these different regions. So very, very, very simple, but a lot of fun. Like I said, these different monsters give you these different special abilities, and basically the amount of cards that you choose to play will be the determining factor on whether or not you control that region. Because if another player's token is already in that region, you have to play one more card down than the amount of tokens that is currently on the board in order for you to surpass that. So if there's one token in the yellow region already, you have to play at least 2 cards in your band, with your leader being yellow, at least 2 cards to take over that region, so on and so forth. Very simple, but one that I guess it's not a hit for everybody. I have played with a couple friends that really don't like this game very much, but I would say 90% of the people that I've played with have loved it. Not only for its simplicity, I mean, that's definitely a factor. It's very easy to teach, very easy to jump into and play, and there's not a whole lot to remember rules-wise in this game, but everybody has just loved the different decisions that they make throughout this game on what region to go after when, and what card to take, and when to play a band of creatures down, and when to kind of hoard those cards in their hand until they can play a bigger band of creatures. And there's just a whole lot of decision making. Another great mechanism in this game that I almost forgot to mention is actually one of the great mechanisms in this game, and that is the round doesn't hold your hand and let you know when it's going to end. Halfway through the deck, in the bottom half of the deck, you mix in these 3 different dragon cards. You shuffle them in, put them at the bottom of the deck, so anywhere in that bottom half of the deck, a dragon might pop up. So 1 dragon, if that pops up, you're like, oh, okay, we're still good, because it takes 3 dragons for the round to end immediately, but those 3 dragons could be 3 cards right in a row. So you don't know when the round's going to end. It's kind of a push your luck in that sense. So the first dragon pops up, it might be a few more players' turns before the second dragon pops up, and then everybody starts going nuts like, oh man, when is this third dragon gonna pop up, and then the round's gonna immediately end. And you know, do I take this one more card to increase my band to a level 4 size, so then I can take over that region that already has 3 tokens in it, because I need 4 cards to take that over? Or do I just go over here and take that lesser point region for 3 cards instead of getting the 4? Because if I take that 4th card, I might not get to play it, because it might not get around to my next turn, because that 3rd dragon might pop up, and I don't know. There's just a lot of fun push your luck and a lot of great thinky decisions to make in this game. And this game is Ethnos.
Number 43.
All right, and my number 43 on the list was actually number 17 last year, so it's dropped quite significantly. Let's see, it's dropped 26 spots, but still number 43, still in my top 50. I still really love the game. I think it's dropped quite a bit because I haven't got as many plays of it as I would have liked to the last year or so, but it is a great game nonetheless, and is highly regarded in the board game hobby community as well, and definitely a staple in many people's collection, and that game is Concordia. So I have Concordia. I have one of the expansions, Concordia Salsa, which adds some different resources and various things to the game as well, but the base game of Concordia in itself is great. That's all you really need to get started with, to see if this is a game for you before you start going out and getting the many different expansions. I think it's got a few different expansions and different maps and boards now. But in Concordia, you've basically got this map with different regions on it, and you start off with some land characters that can move amongst the land, and you start off with some ships that can sail in the water. Everybody starts off with the same hand of cards, and you play 1 card on your turn. As simple as that. Super simple mechanism again. It's kind of reminiscent of the other games on this list this time too, but you play 1 card and you do what it says. It goes around the table. When it comes back to your turn, you play another card and do what it says. And you can't take those cards back to your hand unless you play one specific card from your hand that allows you to get those cards back to your hand. So it's kind of like how long do you want to push it to play cards until you eventually have to spend a turn getting those cards back to your hand. So that's a really fun mechanism. At the core of this game, you are basically, like I said, playing cards to gather various resources and to move your guys around the map and to move your ships around the water to get to different regions and different cities to then build buildings in those regions. And you're basically doing so to get the most victory points. There are different regions that are worth different amounts, and there's these different scoring bonuses that depend on what buildings you've built where. So that's basically the gist of it. Just a lot of moving around and a lot of getting resources and manipulating resources to get better resources or different resources to then build buildings in the regions that you want it to be. There's another aspect on the board where you can trigger various regions. You can trigger all of the resource generating buildings in that region. So sometimes you want to kind of build your engine around a specific area, which is a whole lot of fun too. But like I said, at its heart, you got one-handed cards and you're playing only one card a turn to get resources, manipulate resources, and build buildings to get victory points. There are different cards you can buy and add to your hand as well that have a little bit of added ability above and beyond your basic starting cards. And those also give you end game victory points as well, depending on what cards you had bought. But that's basically it. Concordia, great game, nice, light, simple, fun. I'd say it's another game that's light to play, but heavy strategy-wise. And people also really love this because of the expansions as well that add these different board maps and different variations and variability to the gameplay. But anyway, like I said, the base game is just fine enough. I would get started there, see if you like it, give it a shot, well worth it, and that is Concordia.
Number 42.
All right, and my number 42 game was number 23 last year, so it is down 19 spots. But like I said, I mean, there's a lot of new games to this list that are kind of pushing these around a little bit that I just found a little bit better than some of these other games or some of these older games that I used to have a lot higher on my list as of last year. But it's still number 42, still a great game, and I think like Concordia, like my last pick, I just don't think I've gotten this game to the table as much as I'd hoped to the last year or so, and I would like to get it to the table a lot more. But having said that, I still really love this game. It's this high up on my top 50. Anyway, that game is Lorenzo Il Magnifico. So in Lorenzo Il Magnifico, it's kind of like an engine building game. The main board has 4 different towers. Each tower has its own specific color, that with cards displayed on each tower by the same color as well. And the different color towers and different colored cards kind of give away what they're good at. Like I said, it's an engine building game. Every player has their own player board, and depending on what cards you're taking off of the towers or purchasing from the towers and adding to your board, they do different things and they build your engine in various ways. So you could go after all of one building color to really kind of build your engine in one specific way to get victory points, or some cards really help you on your religion track so you don't get negative or bad things happening to you, and some of the other ones allow you to generate money more frequently and easily. And there's another really cool thing in this game too, where you've got a row of basically like a machine action and a row of like a wood cutting action, and there's cards that you can buy to add to your engine that when you take a specific action on the main board, you can trigger all of your mechanical cards. I don't remember what they're called, but there's like mechanical cards, and then a row of the axe cards. But when you take that action on the main board and trigger that, it triggers all of the cards in that row, or all of the cards in that axe row, for example, and you can really combo nicely with the cards that you've built up on your player board. Like I said, it is just a great engine building, combo building type style of game. Another really fun mechanism in this game is the way that the cards are actually acquired. So you've got these 3 different cylinders in front of you, all of which are 3 different colors. And you've got these 3 different dice that are rolled at the beginning of every round. Depending on the value of those dice, depending on the color die, that corresponds with the color of the cylinders, or the players' cylinders in front of them. So depending on what was rolled, those different values allow you to place that cylinder to acquire a card either higher up or lower down on one of the towers. So It's a lot of fun. You get some assistance in this game too. If you spend an assistant, it'll actually add values to the cylinders as well, so you can purchase up higher on the towers. It doesn't necessarily mean that the higher up cards are better cards or worse cards. It just depends on what you want, when you want it, and you really have to play to that too. You have to play to not knowing what value the dice are going to be, and what values are going to be rolled on what color die that'll correspond with your color cylinder that you can place to acquire the cards. So that's a whole lot of fun too. Some really neat, unique mechanisms in this game, and a great engine builder and combo builder, and one that like I said, would love to get to the table more often and get some more plays of, and that game is Lorenzo Il Magnifico.
Number 41.
All right, and the last game on my list today is number 41. It was actually number 40 on my last year's list, so it just went down one spot. So pretty much stayed the same. It's a great game, and one that'll be staying on my list, I think, for years and years to come. It actually beat out its predecessor, which was the card version of this game. Now this game is strictly dice, and the predecessor was Race for the Galaxy. The game that beat it out, my number 41, is Roll for the Galaxy. In Roll for the Galaxy, it's got the same actions as in Race for the Galaxy. So it's got the Explore action, you've got Develop, Settle, you can trade, and consume. And you've got all these different actions that you can do. The setting is out in space, and you're basically trying to explore these different tiles to then purchase in various ways to add to your board or to add to your tableau for endgame victory points. Some of them generate resources, and you can consume or trade those resources. Basically, you can consume the resources for victory point chips, or you can trade the resources away for more income in order to buy more dice to your cup. And it's really fun because every player has their own player screen. So when you roll the dice out of your cup, nobody can see what the values of the dice are except for your own specific values of dice. You basically set the dice depending on their face symbol to what different actions you want to do with them. Depending on what dice you set to what actions is really cool as well, because you're trying to guess what your main action that you would like to trigger is going to be. So you place that on your board, and you can place all the other dice beneath your board. This game's going to be kind of hard to explain without showing it, but you place the dice beneath your board, hoping that other players have triggered those actions as well. And how they trigger that is by them choosing that as their main action. So you're kind of trying to guess what your opponents are doing or going to do, so then you can piggyback off of their decision and still trigger those actions with the dice you place below your board, while still maintaining your main action for a different action that you placed on your board. So like I said, let's say you rolled some dice and one of them was a explore action, and you wanted that to be your main action because you really wanted to explore the bag of tiles, pull out some tiles, and really try to get some more to build, because building tiles in front of your tableau is how you get victory points. Okay, fine, great, that's great. You place a die as your main action on the board to explore. Well, you have other dice that you rolled that might be settle, because you might need a settlement action to settle that tile, and there might be develop, because you have another tile out in front of you that you're looking to build that needs development in order to build that tile, and so on and so forth. Well, your main action, you'd place that die on the explore action because you really want to do that, but the other dice values you place beneath your board in columns underneath those others as sub actions, because if your opponents trigger one of those sub actions as their main action, you still get to do it. So like I said, a lot of guessing, a lot of trying to second guess what your opponents are going to do, and a lot of piggybacking off of other players' decisions, and a ton of fun. So that's the best I can describe this game. I know it's not described very well, but take it for what it is. And that is my number 41 game, Roll for the Galaxy. All right, and that does it for today's video. I hope you all like what you're seeing so far here on the list. If you like the video here, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you like what we're doing here on the channel, definitely consider subscribing so we can continue doing these videos and continue doing what we love to do. And until next time, you all have a great day.